pretty interesting stuff. We wrestled with for a long time. We wrestle with the freedom of speech issue on social media. We wrestle with the way they do things with algorithms and what you can see and what you can't, and how they hide things and they put up warnings about fake statements, and is this a breach of freedom of speech? And there's this whole thing about everybody leaving X now because Elon Musk owns it. Isn't it interesting? I will say this. Nobody's leaving X because they've been told they can't say something. There are people leaving X because you're allowed to say what you want. I think that's odd, but it's just very strange. But I want you to hear this because a lot of this stems from COVID-19, how it was handled, what the protocol was, what worked and what didn't work. And now as we begin to look as a nation of how we handled it, it's like a debrief. We're starting to see what we got right, what we got wrong, what we didn't do that we should have, and what we did do that we shouldn't have. So here's part of an ABC News report about this report that's been released.
Over more than 550 pages, the Republican-led panel says it believes COVID most likely emerged from a research lab in Wuhan, China. The GOP report blasts government health officials, accusing them of spreading misinformation about COVID's origins and the effectiveness of the vaccine. The report also says federal health agencies unjustly demonized the off-label use of drugs such as ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, which were never proven to be effective treatments for COVID.
Yeah, the problem is, and so I want you to hear a little bit of the other stuff that's in here. This is from thehill.com. If masks and mask mandates were ineffective at controlling the spread of COVID-19, several studies, included one published in August, have found masking in public has an effect on lowering respiratory viral transmission, though this should not be the sole measure used to mitigate spread. Further, the report concluded lockdowns caused more harm than good to the economy and the overall health of Americans and the development of children. The 6-foot social distancing guidance was also blasted as not being supported by science. And again, I give everybody a break. I really do. We had no idea what was going on. I work for a company that's responsible and cares for its employees, and they were following the protocol as it was coming out. I started to work at this radio station 2-3 weeks before COVID, before the shutdowns. 3 weeks. I was coming into work, and there were people that weren't. I worked for over a year, and there were coworkers I never met for over a year. Do you remember?
I still don't know who you are.
Which is why you agreed to the job.
Oh, man. I'm getting to know now.
They had to go get somebody. But do you remember what it was like? You know?
Oh, yeah. And I was one of those deemed essential employees.
Yeah.
And I still went to work, and it was literally just me and my co-host. And we sat in a tiny room all day, and everybody was at home. It was, it was very crazy.
And what we were doing is we had at first, if you remember, the first wave of protocol came from the belief that it stayed and lived on surfaces for a very long time. So we had this formula, this bleach based, it was watered down, but it was a bleach substance, and spray bottles and towels, and everybody wiped everything down at the end of their shift in here because we share a computer and microphones. Everything was wiped down the entire...
We change out the little covers for our microphones.
We were given new ones. We call them mic socks, but we were given new ones that were personal to us. We wiped everything down for a very long time because that was the first protocol that came out. They were just doing their due diligence. Remember that there was, for a while, anytime you walked inside the building, you had to wear a mask. And when you were sitting at your desk, you could take it off.
Right.
But they were just trying to be responsible. I mean, they were just responding to what experts were saying.
Right, exactly. They didn't have no other choices but to do what they said to do.
But then the fight started. That was the part that got me. Because I don't care what you do. It doesn't bother me. Live your life. I don't care. But there was this push from people that if you didn't wear a mask, you didn't care about people, and you should lose your job and lose your children if you don't get your kids vaccinated. If you do, and I've never gotten a flu shot in my life. I've never done any of those things. I got the COVID vaccine. I did. So I didn't care who didn't. With the information I have now, I won't get another one. I won't get another COVID vaccine. These are medical decisions I'm making with a medical professional advising me. I mean, that's what you do.
You know, I saw COVID all around me. I had people, pass away, sadly, that I loved that had it. I didn't get COVID till 2023.
Yeah.
I was seeing all this happening. I'm like, what's going on?
I think that's when I got it.
Yeah, I was a late bloomer, I guess.
Yeah.
So it was very hard to go through all this and see all this happening.
Right. And the other thing we did, you've got children, is we boxed up the kids and kept them home. And all the people my age who were the most susceptible, or the older people, were going to restaurants and hanging out, and we locked the kids at home. It was crushing.
I remember taking Katie to the park wearing a mask outside in the park.
Yeah,
we were doing what we had to do.
The Easter of 2020, I believe
Non-existent.
It was. Right. They shut it down. The city of Phoenix paid employees probably double time to park their vehicles across the park driveway so you couldn't get in, couldn't use the grills, couldn't use the picnic tables, couldn't use the playground equipment, and the safest place to be was outside. And they locked the kids up. We know better now.
It was a wild time.
It was crazy. We did exactly the opposite in the end of what we should have done. Am I right?
According to the report.
Right.
Yes.
So this is the reason why I'm bringing this up is remember how horrible we were to each other. If you wore a mask, the people that didn't wear a mask called you a sheep. If you didn't wear a mask, the people that wore masks called you a horrible person. You don't care about people dying and you're going to kill people.
Yeah, you couldn't win.
Yeah, you couldn't win. So we've got to remember that because something is going to happen. I'm not saying a pandemic, but things are going to happen. And the way we treat each other is usually we should be a live and let live society. You do you and let me do me and we'll figure it out. Let's just hope we get back to that. I just hope we get back to that.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.